Hey, remember how President Man declared himself Supreme Elite World Emperor Man, so he left Earth to solve mysteries in space? Zim's eye twitched. Yes, I recall. Great, glad you do, because I'm seriously considering returning to a worldwide dictatorship instead of doing whatever the hell we're doing out here on this nightmare planet. I understand you're frustrated with the task at hand, but the faster we accomplish it, the faster we can leave, Zim said through gritted teeth. Zim, the soles of my boots are melting. I think I hear my brain sizzling, Dib continued. Zim's grip on his lifeform scanner tightened, briefly warping the screen from the pressure. Maybe if your head wasn't so monstrously deformed, it wouldn't be the target of so many sunlight waves. Behind him, Zim sensed Dib stop walking. What? That insult sucked, even by your standards. The heat's getting to you too. Zim turned on his heel as crisply as he could in the loose red sand of the infinite desert. It's no hotter than that time we had to sell that disgusting candy door to door in school. Quit your whining. Even through the protective face mask Zim had outfitted Dib with, Zim could tell the human was simmering, and not just because of the soul-searing heat. Bullshit. Why did you pick up this stupid job anyway? And why didn't I get any say in it? You were sleeping, we were in the area, it pays well, Zim stated robotically, just as he'd rehearsed. Maybe if you didn't sleep for so many hours at a time, you could have voiced your opinion. You know damn well that humans can't survive without sleep. And here's another human factoid for you. We also can't survive on the surface of the fucking sun! Zim frowned. This isn't a star, this is the planet Cirrus Minor. I know this isn't literally the sun. I'm just saying that I could get heat stroke and die out here, Dib said. What? Zim's antenna flicked up involuntarily as he assessed Dib's condition. Dib's face was covered by the goggled mask, but his arms were bare and slick with sweat. He stank of salt and exertion, and his posture was more hunched than usual. Dib straightened slightly under Zim's intense gaze, his tone softening subtly. I'm not dying, Zim. I'm just frustrated and very, very hot. Zim knows you're not dying, and that you're merely being a dramatic worm baby, Zim hissed, but his eyes traveled down to the length of Dib's arm to the sun-reddened new scar on the back of his hand. The memory returned to the front of Zim's mind, unbidden of the standoff with the smugglers he and Dib had stumbled upon during their last investigation. A full week had passed, but the mark from the energy pistol shot was still there. Dib had explained that even with Zim's repair pod and advanced tech, human tissue didn't repair itself with the same speed and precision as Orcan tissue. Yet another shortcoming of the packless human race, Zim supposed. Still, his attention lingered on the raised skin of Dib's hand for a few seconds too long. Zim? Dib prompted. Hydrate yourself and keep up, Zim ordered, spinning away and focusing on his tracker. Dib followed Zim along the top of a red dune, obediently taking a swig from his canteen as he walked. They traveled in silence for a while as Zim tampered with the tracker, pausing occasionally to aim it one way or another and adjust a dial on its side. What an absolute wasteland this place was. Nothing but red sand and the rare shock of white stone for miles in every direction beneath the sickly yellow sky. Zim barely held back his own string of complaints and made sure to keep his face away from Dib so the human wouldn't notice his panting. He released a quiet sigh of relief when his device finally dinged and indicated a new direction. Did you find one? A cockatrice, or whatever you called it? Dib asked, peering over Dib's shoulder at the screen. Creekatee, Zim corrected. Yes, in a that-way direction. Dib squinted in the direction Zim pointed, checked the screen again, and looked off in another direction. Are you sure it's that way? Zim grumbled and rechecked the coordinates. Damn it, the Dib might be right. Zim swiftly pointed in the correct direction. Yes, just as Zim said. That way. But you were pointing... Ugh, never mind, Dib said with an air of resignation. Can you explain what exactly we're doing with this creaky whatever? I already told you, Zim said, quickening his pace. I was half asleep, and you were dragging me into this Arrakis-looking hellscape while you did, Dib said. Forgive me if my memory is foggy. We're capturing creekatees to sell to the egg farmers on this planet's moon. Creekatee eggs are a luxury food for many sapient species in this quadrant. Those farmers will pay top cred for new animals. The device beeped again in Zim's hands. Good, they were on the right track. And creekatees are crabs? Dib asked. Basically, yes, I think so, Zim answered as he checked his scanner against the landscape. Ahead, a cluster of tall slabs of rock leaned together, forming something akin to a pyramid. Perhaps creekatees nested there. To be honest, Zim's understanding of the species was limited to the details he'd skimmed on the ad for creekatee catchers that had led him to this planet. Huh. I think in a place like this there would be, I don't know, giant sandworms or something, Dib said. Why on earth would you think that? Dib's expression was hard to discern behind the mask, but he spread his hands in an isn't-it-obvious sort of gesture. Like in Dune or Tremors? Hell, even Beetlejuice had a giant evil sandworm. The evilest things here are the sand and the sun, Zim said, kicking up a little sand for emphasis. Powdery particulate drifted slowly down from Zim's kick. See that? The sand is incredibly fine, which is why you're not to remove your mask. It infiltrates everything. Just a little bit of it could jam anything mechanical if it manages to work its way inside. Fortunately for us, I used my genius to perfectly seal my lifeform tracker and your bionet. You do have the net, yes? Dib pulled the slingshot-like contraption from the bag slung over his shoulder. Zim nodded in approval. Excellent. So no sandworms to fear, Dib Smelly. The biggest threat to us would be a sandstorm. So it's not just the sun and the sand that we need to worry about, but also sandstorms? Dib asked flatly. Zim waved the tracker in the air. Not at all. My brilliant tracker also monitors weather conditions. It will alert us if we're in danger, so we can summon Ger to pick us up. As long as we call before the storm gets too close and the Gafalika particles in the sand disrupt communications, we'll be fine. Okay, see, you just brought up yet another dangerous-sounding thing, Dib said. Zim waved his free hand dismissively. Gafalika particles are of no concern to us. They're only a problem if they're kicked up in a sandstorm, at which point they merely inhibit electronic communications. But we don't have to worry about that because we'll know when a storm is brewing, and we'll be able to avoid it before the particles cause any trouble. The Dib is perfectly safe. Dib's head tilted to the side, the glare from the sun on his goggles rendering his expression unreadable. Right, okay. So you sealed the tracker and the net. What about your pack? Strangely, heat seemed to bloom from within Zim, rising into his cheeks. A small alarm pinged in the back of his mind. What about it? Did you seal it too? The pack is naturally sealed in its current state. I'll keep it closed, Zim stated. Dib was silent for a few seconds. You said the farmers pay a lot for these crab things. How much is a lot? He eventually asked. 500 cred each, Zim boasted. It's a perfect deal. Low risk, high pay, easy as walking a cake with a baby. What? Whatever. Listen, Zim, something about this doesn't feel right, Dib said. Ugh, you and your feelings, Zim grumbled. It is perfect. Even if we catch just one Krieketee, we'll have a month's worth of expenses covered and then some. The tracker chimed rapidly and Zim's antenna jumped forward in anticipation. What is that? Is there a sandstorm? Dib asked, scanning the horizon. Zim danced from foot to foot in excitement. It's here! We're right on top of a Krieketee. Quick, ready the bionet. Dib hoisted the branched net-throwing contraption and held it at the ready. Both the human and the Urkin crouched low and searched the monotonous sprawl of red sand and pale pebbles. For about a minute, nothing changed. No movement, no noise, just two beings staring expectantly at the ground. And then, the ground shivered. Dib took a step back. Zim? Dib? How large would you say a Krieketee is? The ground quaked a little more violently, shifting the silty sand and making it ripple like water. I don't know. I've never seen one. Zim, are you fucking... Dib's sentence was cut off as a massive shape erupted from the sand, flinging them both backwards. Sand billowed, completely obscuring the scene for several seconds as it settled. Zim scrambled to his feet, panic rising in his squealy spooch as his antenna flitted around, seeking Dib's presence in the haze of dust. As soon as he made out Dib's shape, an enormous claw slammed into the ground between them, causing Zim to jump back again. He held his breath at the impossible sight before him. There, surrounded by drifting sand, towered a crab twice the size of Zim's boot cruiser. It looked like a glass sculpture, all sharp angles and glossy planes with a pair of gigantic sharp-edged claws. Two long eye stalks swiveled towards them. The net! Zim shrieked, stumbling backwards to avoid one of the Krieketee's legs as it stepped towards him. On the other side of the creature, Dib had regained his footing. With remarkable poise for the situation, he leveled the bionet at the monster, braced himself, and fired. A glittering blue energy grid shot from between the arms of the slingshot and struck the back of the Krieketee before disintegrating anticlimactically. What the fuck, Zim? Dib had shouted, pointing ferociously at the worthless weapon in his other hand. The Krieketee's eyes twisted towards Dib and a wave of nausea coursed through Zim's body. The monster's legs moved so swiftly, too quickly for a creature of its size, and it was on Dib within seconds. The human yelled out in horror and tried to escape up the side of a dune, only to sink into the sand, the bionet forgotten in the dust. A claw raised in the air above Dib. Zim didn't think, only acted. His pack laser zipped out from behind him and unleashed a series of blasts into the Krieketee's chitinous body, producing an eerie ringing sound, like a crystal chandelier swaying. Pack legs lifted him into the air, struggling for purchase and stability in the sand, but still managing to move at a spectacular speed toward Dib. Zim didn't feel the claw slice across his abdomen as he raced by, but he saw the trail of magenta blood that arced through the air as he fought to maintain his balance. He dipped down, barely evading a second swipe as he hooked his arms beneath Dib and pulled him out of the swirling sand. Dib was screaming something, but Zim didn't register the words. His entire attention was on the pyramid of leaning stone slabs ahead of him. His pack legs galloped gracelessly across the unstable terrain, but he somehow managed to put distance between himself and the Krieketee. Not enough distance. Not fast enough. Not enough strength. Zim didn't register he was falling until he'd already hit the ground in a spray of sand. The tracker, miraculously still in his hand, flew from his grasp. Blearily, Zim noticed Dib next to him, sitting up, shaking his head, turning toward him. The ground trembled as the Kriketi gained on them. Dib's head turned rapidly this way and that as he assessed the situation. He snatched the tracker off the ground, jammed it in his bag, and then scooped Zim into his arms. Zim felt it then, the explosion of bright hot pain across his stomach that seemed to spread tendrils of agony through his entire body. He couldn't bite back the anguished shriek as Dib flailed forward, Zim and tracker in hand, toward a gap in the rocks ahead. The narrow crevice tore at both Dib and Zim as Dib fought his way into it. Inch by miserable inch, Dib squeezed them deeper inside, until at last the space opened to a small conical hollow, barely the size of Zim's kitchen. Behind them, the Kriketi's claws scrabbled at the opening but failed to reach inside. Zim focused on Dib's thundering heart as Dib sank against the opposite wall, still holding Zim close to his chest. For a long while, the two could only sit in silence, panting and whimpering, waiting for the claw to stop its assault. At last, the Kriketi seemed to tire of its hapless attempts to reach its prey. Zim curled in on himself, grinding his teeth to resist the terrible throb of the wound across his middle while still trying to listen for the monster with his trembling antenna. Silence. Awful, wonderful silence, broken only by Dib's hoarse voice. "Zim, I'm going to fucking kill you."